What's up, Voidbringers, Radiants, and Lightweavers? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files Podcast, the podcast that wastes hours of your life that you will never get back. We are your co-hosts, Spencer and Sam, joined by Jim from Fantasy for the Ages and Gavin, once again to dive back into the Cosmere and discuss Oathbringer, Book 3 of the Stormlight Archive. Now, if you're tuning in for the first time, I'll just mention that we'll be spoiling everything that we've read before this book. So that includes Mistborn Eras 1 and 2, Tress of the Emerald Sea, Elantris, Warbreaker, and Secret History, but we will not be spoiling future Stormlight books because this is Gabe and I's first time through them. I know Gabe's not here today. I kind of think that he's fallen off of Stormlight, but still, it's our first time going through them, so just be aware of that, and please don't spoil the Stormlight Archive in the comments because we do read them and we love chatting with you guys down there. If you'd like to reach out to us, all of our links are down in the description, as is Jim's. And if you'd like to watch our episodes live as we record them, weeks ahead of when YouTube sees them, you can join us on our Patreon to hang out with us live. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have any announcements right now because I don't really know when this episode will be going up. But if you missed it, by the time you're seeing this, we've done our big end of the year extravaganza where we talk about our top 5 favorite books of the year, favorite video games of the year, movies, TV shows, all that stuff, our biggest disappointments. So go check that out in the live tab on our channel on YouTube. With that being said, Jim and Gavin, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I love having you guys on, especially for Stormlight, because you're so knowledgeable, as is Sam. She's read the series multiple times. And so really, I'm the only person on this episode that is not clued in to the entirety of Stormlight.
And we are here for you, my friend. We are here for you.
How are you guys doing? Jim, Gavin, have you guys been reading anything recently as we close in the year here?
Yeah, book 5 of Stormlight Archive. Catch up, dude. Wind and Truth. It's awesome. I'm not done, but a lot of people are already, and it's a pretty incredible book, I hear.
Yeah. Speaking of people that are done with Wind and Truth, Gavin.
Can attest. Did finish. Very good. I'll keep my thoughts vague on it, but yeah, I was quite happy and I finished it quite quickly. So I'm actually so I went through first at 1.6. Now I'm going through again at 1.4.
On the reread already. Look at that.
Yeah, well, some of those early chapters that were in the pre-release, those were months ago. I ended up reading them, so it's nice now that spoilers, some big stuff happens at the end. So
in a Stormlight Archive book? No.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's just the 5th one, end of the first arc, no big deal. A couple things happen. But yeah, so now I'm just not just pure no sleep binging it, just making it through at a more reasonable pace. So
did you take time off work to read it, or how did you do it?
Luckily Brandon's got so much sway in the industry now, I don't really need to. And I was telling Sam before we started that work is a little quiet for me. So anyway, I started reading Thursday night, read pretty much a lot on Friday, probably more than you're supposed to when you're working, but benefits of working from home. And then, just kind of did the whole thing. I'll sleep when I'm tired, and I finished Sunday night.
Wow.
Yeah.
So on our channel, we recently did an episode about some of the worst books in fantasy, and somebody commented, "I hope you got Brandon Sanderson stuff on there." And I'm like, I'm reading Wind and Truth right now. What world do you live on?
Oh,
crazy.
That would be an interesting episode. Worst books we've ever read. Would you have a list, Sam?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, look at the amount of books I have behind me. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good idea. I might have to steal that from you, Jim.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Be my guest.
So I was doing a lot of rereading of Brandon stuff leading into Wind and Truth. I reread Era 1 and 2 of Mistborn, Secret History. I did my first ever reread of Elantris, which I had never done before. So it's been over 10 years since I'd read that. So it was fun going back to that.
Elantris
My
is
next,
so good. It's so underrated.
yeah, I was pleasantly surprised because I had it pretty squarely ranked my least favorite just
Mhm.
until doing this recent round of rereading everything or most things, and now I'd
Yeah.
actually put it in whatever the second book of the first Mistborn trilogy. I actually quite liked Elantris on my reread.
I
Yeah.
Still
still
not one of his
feel
strongest for
Elantris
me.
feels early Sanderson. It's okay,
Yeah,
but
it
not
feels
as good as what comes after for me.
Exactly.
it feels early, but it's the idea for me. Like the idea behind it, you can see
Sure.
like how good he is with the magic system already, and like the little like Sander Lanch. Like it doesn't have like a massive Sander Lanch,
Not
but
in that one.
it's got like a little one where I'm like, oh, you can see where all of this kind of got started.
Now, have you read the anniversary edition?
So that's what I hadn't read it, and so that was what I
Mm,
went through this time.
Definitely better.
It had been so long since it's hard for me to remember the differences. It felt the same to me because it had been so long, but I definitely made sure to get the anniversary, no doubt about it. But yeah, and then my next
Yeah.
reading project is I'm finally going to pull the trigger on The Expanse. I read the first book a while back.
Yes.
ooh,
Yes.
The problem is I read the first book and then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to watch the first season of the show like right back to back, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, this is the same thing. Like I just read this.
It's a great adaptation. It
forward.
really
it's a
is.
great
So-
adaptation. Yeah,
I knew exactly what was going to happen because it was so good, close to the book. So
Although
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the adaptation shifts away from the books a little bit, starting with
Mhm.
the second season. So
Mhm.
move into that second book, and yeah,
Exactly,
it'll have some
yeah.
fresh stuff.
but
I wasn't sure whether I was going to do the show or the book, and I've just kind of decided now. Now I'm just going to do all the books, and then
Yeah.
maybe go to the show after.
that's better. Yeah, even the second season though, I think it does change some things, but there are some things that are so close to the books where there is like this very, I won't spoil anything, but there is this very niche scene in either book 2 or 3, I think it's in book 2, where one character beats the hell out of another character with a can of chicken. And I was like, please let that be in the show. Please let that be in the show. It's such a random, like, one-off scene.
Chicken.
But sure
Wasn't it
enough, I'm
tuna?
watching the show, and this guy beats the shit out of another
It
guy
was
with
great.
this
It
can
was
of
great.
chicken.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go.
The Expanse adaptation is the proof that you can actually do an adaptation that's practically page to screen, and
Yes.
people will love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
Yep.
you got all these people, and the Wheel of Time is an example. The adaptation is very different from the books. It's the core is still there,
Yeah.
but it strays a lot. It's changing. It's emphasizing different things. They're like, well, that's what you got to do in an adaptation. And the Expanse says, no, you don't.
Right.
You can just do the good story right there. You can do
Well,
both
same
kinds
with
of
same with Dark Matter. Did anybody watch Dark Matter on
Not
Apple
yet.
TV?
Not
Dude,
yet, but it's on my list.
because I
It
haven't
is
read the
like-
book yet.
it is literally like scene for scene the exact same as the book. Like not like moment by moment it is the same thing as the book. It's wild. I've never seen anything like it. It'll definitely be in my end of the year discussion for sure. Okay.
Also, Spencer, I just got to say, I don't know the can of chicken scene, but no spoilers. There may be a scene in Wind and Truth that might tickle your fancy. No
Okay.
spoilers for Jim. That's as close as I'll get. But there's a very fun scene in Wind and Truth.
Okay.
Since you went there, I will just say, though, have you guys seen the movie Red One?
Mm-mm.
No,
It's a Christmas
Oh,
movie.
yeah,
It's
it just
new this
came out.
year. It was out in theaters last month. It's on Prime Video now. It's not going to be a classic of all time, but it's just cheap laughs. It's funny, and there's a great scene with a chicken.
Okay.
And my husband loves those type of movies, so I'm gonna look it up right now.
I'm gonna write it down as a suggestion for like a family Christmas thing when I'm home.
My wife and I both, we laughed so hard. No deep themes, but it's definitely a Christmas movie, and it
Yeah.
was hilarious. An action comedy Christmas film.
Okay.
That's great.
Come on.
right up my alley.
Let's go into general thoughts for Oathbringer. I'm curious where everyone lands on this. I guess we can just go clockwise, starting with Sam.
I mean, this I think is probably my favorite out of
Okay.
all the books that I've read today, and I have not read Wind and Truth yet. So
Sure.
out of all of them, I think this is my favorite. I think this is where you get kind of past the development and really get like who the characters are, who they're going to be, what they're going to do. And I think it moved a lot faster than the initial 2 books. I think the first book is really just, even though it's like 1,300 pages, it's really just kind of just setting the stage for the whole rest of the series. It's a very long prologue, but I loved all of them regardless. But I think Oathbringer is my favorite. I still think as of this moment, Oathbringer is my favorite.
It's so funny to, and I won't give my full thoughts yet, but it's so funny to hear some of you guys say that it's fast paced, because I thought the exact opposite.
But for you to have thought like the other books weren't slow paced, and then to think this one wasn't fast paced is kind of surprising.
Yeah, because even like Way of Kings for me, I didn't think it was slow paced. It was slower. I just didn't think it was like, oh my God, can we get on with this? It was there. I felt like there was enough happening in that. And then Words of Radiance, we were talking a little bit before we started the actual episode here. And you guys had been saying that Words of Radiance was like a little bit faster than Way of Kings, but still really slow. I thought Words of Radiance was like 10 times faster than this book.
See, I've always described for people that Words of Radiance, the Sanderlanche, starts at about 90%. And before that, it crawls. And then Words of Radiance, it starts at about 75%. And it's like, whoa, this sucker just takes off. Oathbringer is like about halfway through. This thing really starts picking up pace, and hold on. And Rhythm of War, it's like about 15% in. The sucker starts taking off. And the whole thing is a ride. So I'm really surprised you're feeling about Oathbringer. This is interesting.
Gavin, what are your general thoughts on
I really like Oathbringer. It's not my personal list of Way of Kings, Words of Radiance, Wind and Truth, Oathbringer, Rhythm of War, but I like them all. I feel you a little bit for part 3 in Kholinar. Oh wait, I have the right book. Yeah, I have the right book. Part 3 in Kholinar. Like, there's a few times with the Shallan stuff, I'm like, all right, like let's go. Even on a reread, I kind of felt that. But for the most part, I'm never someone who usually worries too much about pacing. I just finished Wind and Truth, and I could have used another 1,300 pages. I don't.
Wow.
Just give me all of it. So, but in general, like, I really like the ending of Oathbringer. Like, it really made me feel at the end with Dalinar, and it also gives me my hardest laugh, which I'll say at one point in that Brandon has given me. I was also sleep deprived after reading for like 20 hours straight when it happened. And I didn't laugh nearly as hard on my reread, but in the moment, it gave me a huge laugh because it was so unexpected in the moment. But in general,
from Oathbringer,
I think it's fantastic.
What was the big laugh from Oathbringer?
The big laugh is Dalinar turns to Lift, and he's holding the Way of Kings. And he goes, "Do you have a weapon?" And she looks at him and looks at his book and goes, "I can't read." And Dalinar is just like blind, just has no idea what to say. And he's like, no, like anyway, just like the moment of no, I don't have a weapon. No, I can't read, because he's holding as a book cracked me up.
Yeah, that
great.
That was a good laugh for me too. I really liked that one. and then she summons her shard blade, and it's a baton.
Yeah.
And he's like, what is that? And she's like, I forget what her little guy's name is, but she's like, he doesn't like to hurt anybody. Yeah. And Dalinar's like, a shard blade that doesn't like to hurt people.
Lift is a special being.
I love Lift. I love Lift so much. She just has no filter, and she just says, what everyone else is thinking, but wouldn't actually say out loud.
I think
Lift is awesome.
I don't hate Lift. I think that Lift is a perfect depiction of what Brandon Sanderson's humor is at its core.
So I'm a bit like Spencer, because I remember Spencer talking, like, hating Lift when he first met Lift, and I remember reading for the first time going, like a goofy kid character. Like, I don't think it really fits for this big serious book. I didn't really like it, but ever since then, I'm like, I have turned around. I'm like, no, give me more Lift. I have Lift thoughts from Wind of Truth, but in general, I came around mega on Lift as well.
And you'll have some different feelings with Lift when you read Rhythm of War as well. There's reasons you're going to come to appreciate Lift that you just don't know yet.
And when you learn more about Edge Dancers too, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did read Edge Dancer, so I'll talk about that in a second as well. But yeah, go ahead, Jim, with your first impressions or general thoughts.
First impression, Oathbringer was my second favorite. Rhythm of War was my favorite, but on the reread that shifted. So Oathbringer is my favorite of the Stormlight Archive, and not only that, it's my single favorite Sanderson writing to date.
Wow.
Whoa.
This is impressive writing. There's so much that he's done in this book.
Yes.
Not just in an incredible plot and a wonderful story, but some deep nuances in characters, in mental health, and the way he's paid attention to the truisms of life and tried to apply them in an accurate and sensitive manner without pandering to that, but instead using it well to be able to advance his story. I mean, he's doing something I've not seen any author do in that lane, which I'm just very impressed with.
What interesting. What do you mean by that? He's doing something you haven't seen any other author do, as far as
the way he accurately portrays depression, anxiety, split personalities, and does it in a way that shines light on these circumstances in the real world, but also uses them to tell a story.
Right.
And he's not cheapening them in telling his story. Because some people will throw in a character that's got this or that, to advance what they want to do. And it's cheapening the issue. You can read these characters and actually better understand people who struggle with these mental illnesses.
Yeah.
And have greater empathy. But his story is advanced because of it. I mean, I don't know how he pulled this off, but it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I would agree. I really don't know anything about like mental illnesses or anything, and I've heard so many people talk about Kaladin in particular being the poster child for depression, and I think that's awesome. I think that's cool that is getting screen time and being shown through a character in a way that isn't pandering. I think, through reading this, it was something that I was trying to pay attention to, because this is something that I've known for years about Stormlight, is that Kaladin is like this great example of depression, and I'm sure there's other characters that have things as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit here. But I think as I've been reading these, I'm like, I think I just don't know enough about depression to be able to like pinpoint when Kaladin's depression is coming into play. And I wish I did, because I wish I could enjoy, maybe enjoy isn't the right word, but like, for lack of a better term, enjoy the book with that in mind, like a lot of other people seem to do. I wish
really
I could pick up on that a little bit.
Front and center in Rhythm of War, which is one of the reasons I love Rhythm of War. So as you read the next book, you'll be like, oh, that's what Jim meant.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. I did like, there was a scene where, what's her name? Syl. I keep wanting to call her like Azure for some reason, just because she's blue. But Syl, there was a scene with her and Kaladin where she was basically saying, you like suffer with loneliness. Like, you have always wanted someone to like be with you, and you kind of attach yourself to certain people. Like, for a while it was like Laurel or whatever his other like girlfriend for a while was, or then it's like Moash, and like Moash is like your person that you like kind of. And so I liked this conversation that she had where she's like, you don't do very well by yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can identify with that very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so my general thoughts, guys. You know, by the time people are seeing this episode, it's already happened. It's in the past for you guys viewing this on YouTube. But by the time you guys are seeing this, we've done our end of the year like big extravaganza where we talk about like our favorite books of the year, like our favorite video games, and also we talk about our favorite disappointments, or not like our favorite disappointments, but like the biggest disappointments of the year. And for the past couple weeks, I have been trying to figure out like what is my biggest disappointment of the year? Do I really have one? Like I'm sure there's been a couple things. Um, and then as soon as I was about halfway or three quarters of the way through Oathbringer, I said, this is my biggest disappointment of the year.
Really?
I did not like this book at all. I like the ending was good. I liked the big battle at the end. Um, but and like there's like little moments throughout the book that I liked, like little scenes and stuff, but for the most part I did not enjoy my time with this book
No
like at
surprises.
all. I thought it was extremely slow. I thought the characters seemed really like disjointed from each other. They weren't really working in concert with each other like they were in the second book. And like I'm sure like they were all headed towards like a similar goal, but I just something felt disjointed about the way the story was told to me. I feel like I feel like there was a problem with like the sense of place, like where each character was in relation to the other characters. Matter of fact, I had to, as I was reading this, I finally realized about halfway through the book that I need to be reading this book with a summary. And so I had to watch what's his name, Captured in Words summary of the book as I went through it. I would listen to the audiobook first, and I'd make it through a section, and then I'd go back and listen to a summary of that section. Just because for whatever reason I couldn't tell where people were. Like I didn't even know for the longest time that we were in Urithiru. And so then when I listened to the summary, I'm like, oh, they were in Urithiru during that scene. What the heck? And so it totally could have been user error. It could have been like, just like, not. I mean, I was trying to pay attention, but maybe it was just like I was bored and just like not paying attention to where they were. But I was listening the whole time. I was trying really hard. So I
Really, I
don't.
promise.
Yeah, I don't just like breeze through these books. I try to like I will re-listen to entire chapters and chapters if I have to. And I was just so lost for the majority of this book. And it probably wasn't until part three where I really started feeling like we were on our way to something, like where they started going to Kolinar and trying to see what was up with that city and like the darkness that was hiding in that city, and kind of solving that problem, and then going from there to Shadesmar, and then going from there to like the big final epic battle that we get. I would say Kolinar is where I really started being like, okay, like I get what's happening now. Um, but a lot of the politics, like a lot of the stuff with the other kingdoms, I feel like there was a lot of new names that were introduced, or maybe not new names, but names that were only briefly mentioned before, that were like coming into play, and I was like, I have no idea who this person is. And there was just a lot of confusion on my end.
Now you did this on audio, right,
That's
Spencer?
what I
I
was
did.
thinking is audio.
Yeah.
There are some books that are hard to consume on audio. I
Yeah.
read it the first time, I did audio the second time.
Yeah.
And that really helped me. You're right. There's a lot to keep track of. And if it's just
Yeah.
going by as you listen at 1.75 or whatever you do,
Yeah.
it's hard to keep track of.
Yeah, it was super difficult, and I think I kind of felt how Gabe must have felt on the last episode, because he was saying kind of the same thing about Words of Radiance, and I was like, "What? You're crazy." And this week I'm kind of in his shoes where I'm like for the most part, I understand everything that happens. I don't think I have to go as far as to do like a reread before I read Rhythm of War. I don't think I need that. But like maybe right before reading Rhythm of War, I might re-listen to Captured in Words' summary just to kind of fill in all of the blanks. Um, because yeah, I was having a tough time with this book. Um, and yeah, there was just a lot of stuff that that was kind of hard to follow for me, and I really think that like Brandon Sanderson, like whether it's user error or not, I think looking at it as objectively as I possibly can, I don't know if too many people would argue that Brandon Sanderson desperately needed like some more heavy editing in this book. I think there's large portions of the books that of this book that could be cut away, and maybe like told in like a quick, one-off chapter or something. Like all of the stuff with the bridgemen learning to fly, I still don't understand how Kaladin is able to give them his powers, but like we got so many chapters of them just like learning to do the wind walking thing, and I was like, this doesn't need to be here. And then a lot of Shallan's chapters I was really disappointed with, where I'm like, okay, I don't like any of this multiple personality stuff, and I think a lot of that could have gotten cut away.
I felt the same way the first time. Again, that's one of those areas where on a reread you get it better. But I feel you. I understand. I was like, Shallan, no, stop. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Spencer had once said that the Shallan chapters were his favorite, and I did not understand it because to me they were the ones I hated the most. And I was like, oh, really? Okay.
yeah.
I told a couple of friends that I recorded a podcast with someone who just read Way of Kings and their favorite,
Okay.
and they were blown away that Spencer and Gabe's favorite POVs in Way of Kings was Shallan. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's unusual, but
Really?
I think it's usually, most people the opposite. And I
big
only
fan
started
of
really
Shallan
getting
early
annoyed
on.
with
Nope.
Shallan. I only really started getting annoyed with Shallan once she started arguing with herself, but I liked
Yeah.
her early as well.
I think when she becomes Ray's, is when I just kind of get annoyed with her. And like, I understand what it does for the plot, but I was just like, I think it's because it gave me too much anxiety that I was like, this is too much for me. I don't want to read these. Like, just tell me how this ends.
when she had the multiple.
Yeah. She has just never been ever at any point my favorite chapters to read. I'm very much a Kaladin and oh my god, why am I Dalinar? I'm a Kaladin Dalinar chapter. Like, yes, give me all of them, give me more of them. In the Shallan chapters, I am just kind of like, all right, let's get through this.
Just teaser.
I thought
I am so there for Shallan now, and I'm only a little bit in. There's so much goodness happening here.
Yes.
Because I thought you guys had been on board with me in the last episode or two with Shallan. Is that not the case? Okay.
Well, no, I was saying I'm with you, but most people start off hating Shallan, or like in terms of it being that's not true. Most people, it's their least favorite POV in Way of Kings. Is what I found. That might not be true, but that's my understanding.
Because so far, I think this book in particular, I really did not like Shallan, but in the first two, I definitely did. Honestly, I can't think of anybody's POV in this book that I enjoyed reading. Like, Kaladin was hardly there, it felt like. And then Dalinar, I guess, like, I enjoyed some of his stuff, but I really did not enjoy Dalinar either. And Shallan, who is supposed to be, like, my saving grace, like, I was just like, why does she have these other personalities? Like, where did this come from? I'm sure it's foreshadowed in the first books or something, but I'm just like, this seems so random that this person, like, she was like, oh, I'm gonna impersonate Vale, which isn't that the person that was on the boat with her that was gonna like teach her how to be
Vale is
No?
based
After
off
the
of
book.
Tin, but
After the
Tin
book.
is the
Tin.
where she learned the spy spells. Tyn, yeah.
The one
Oh,
she came
okay.
upon.
And Vale is based off kind of Shallan's version of her.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
The
Okay.
fact, what you just said about Dalinar is mind-blowing. This book is so huge for Dalinar, and what it
Yeah.
reveals about him and how it grows his character. And you're like, yeah, those Dalinar chapters are not.
Yeah, what about the flashbacks, Spencer? What do you think about the flashbacks?
Every time a flashback came up, I just wanted to get back to present day. I think the only things that were interesting for me from the flashbacks were learning that he basically killed his wife. Like he was the one that like
No, basically about it.
yeah, like he
Yeah, she died because she was an idiot. But
Yeah.
okay.
right. Yeah, like she decided to go over there and try to like make peace with the other army, which is okay.
You might have wanted to tell somebody.
Yeah, you might have wanted to tell
geez.
somebody. So I say basically because like of course he didn't mean to. Like he didn't know she was there. But yeah, he like sets fire to the city and kills his wife. That was interesting. And then learning that he went to cultivation or the Night Mother to
Yeah, we have to talk about that at some point.
to erase his memories. And I thought it was interesting that at first he goes like he says that it wasn't what he was planning on asking, so I don't know what exactly he was planning on asking, but when he shows up, he asks for forgiveness. He's like, I just want forgiveness. And I thought that was like a really, really, really good scene. And then
the Night Watcher glitches and goes, "What? WTF?"
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Night Watcher glitches and Cultivation has to come to the rescue.
Yeah, because
Right.
I saw in your notes you had a little confusion about the Night Watcher and cultivation.
Yeah, because the Night Watcher is cultivation.
No,
two separate
Oh.
entities. Got to read that scene again.
You missed something
Interesting.
there, my friend. Very much so.
Because I assumed the first entity he talked to was like an underling of the Night Watcher who ends up.
True. That's true, sort of.
No, the first thing is the underling, but that underling is the Night Watcher.
That is the Night Watcher.
Oh, okay. And
then
then the person that
cultivation
steps
is
in is
another
cultivation.
being
Correct.
that created the Night Watcher.
Presumably.
Interesting. Okay.
More or less.
Okay. That makes sense, I guess. But yeah, I was kind of like.
I'm laughing. That makes sense, I guess. And his brain is not really. Let's move on to another point.
No, I mean, it's fair. I just assumed that they were part of the same like team or unit or whatever like they're part of the same like tribe or whatever they are out there, or the same like organization or whatever you want to call it. I don't know.
This is where we can't tell you more because more is revealed
I know
later.
so much lore, but it's all
Sorry.
really. One thing I will say, it is interesting that she offered him a sword that bleeds darkness. That always sticks out on rereads. That apparently
she offers him a sword.
A sword that I think like she says a sword that bleeds darkness and eats souls or whatever, something like that.
Okay.
Was one of the things that she's like, well, I can't give you forgiveness. I can give you this and this and this.
Right.
So it's like I always wonder on the rereads, like, was she saying that because she knew she'd say no, or if he said yes, like, did she have that within her capability to provide, what is presumably Nightblood to Dalinar, if that's what he wanted. Anyway,
interesting. Okay.
It's tough to talk about that, the lore about cultivation and
sure
the Night Watcher.
But cultivation is playing a long game here with Dalinar.
Okay.
And it's important, to
I'd say a long game period.
So we'll pull your memories, but not permanently.
Prune them.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say about Dalinar. I liked that scene. I liked the scene where he finally broke down with Renarin, where Renarin's like bringing in the wine, and he's in his tent and he's like, "Go away!" And then he just like breaks down, starts crying, and hugs Renarin. That was a great scene. But for the most part, I really didn't care about a lot of the stuff that that Dalinar was doing. A lot of it was like politicking, and there's certain books where I really like that, like King's Dark Tidings. I love all of the politics scenes. I love all of the times where Rezkin is like going to like some foreign leader and like making a deal and like trying to gain allies and stuff. For whatever reason, it just didn't work for me in this book, and I don't know if it was just because I didn't recognize like who some of these people were. So I didn't know like why I should like care in the moment.
In a way, Sam, Gavin, back me up if I'm right on this, but the fact that you don't like the Dalinar's politicking should make you like Dalinar that much more. He doesn't like that he's politicking. That's a big part of the story.
He doesn't want
Sure.
to do
He's
it.
going outside his comfort zone. He's doing what he's being, encouraged to do, and he hates every moment of it. It's not his nature. And when he finally lets go and just yells at what's her name from Thaylen City,
Fen,
finally it works.
Yeah.
Fen, thank you. And so I thought you'd connect with that based on what you just said.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Alcohar kind of forced it on him, He just kind of came up to him and said, you've really been the one pulling the strings, telling everyone what to do. I'm going to be king still, but you're going to be high king. You know what I mean? So it wasn't even a goal he had set for himself in any way.
We have a good boy sighting. Oh.
And for me,
think.
culminating with "You Cannot Have My Pain,"
that was a great scene.
That moment,
yeah, that was a great scene.
It was 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, there was good Dalinar scenes. I think my broader point is that in the previous two books, there was certain characters where I'm like, this is my person. Like in book 1, it was Shallan, and then in book 2, it was like a mix of like Kaladin and Shallan. And in this book, I was like, I just like can't think of like anybody's storyline that like particularly stood out to me. And I don't know, it was so weird. Like maybe I would say like maybe Adolin, but like he didn't even really have his own storyline going on. Like everybody was so, it felt like everybody was spread so thin. So I don't know. Yeah, but going back to my original point, I do think that Brandon Sanderson could have used an editor during this book to kind of like make it a little bit more snappy. Like I think there are large swaths of the book that could have been boiled down to a chapter or two.
Now, Brandon Sanderson's process. I mean, he has so many beta readers, and
yeah,
I mean, he's gotten input, but yeah, still he's so successful that in the end he's just like, nah, screw you, I just want it anyways. Though he won't say screw you because that's inappropriate language.
Although sometimes he'll give 3 different endings to one character to 3 different groups of beta readers just to see what happens, which is what he did for Wind of Truth apparently, which is crazy. I can't wait to find out what character. He said it publicly. I don't think people know what character it is yet, or at least if they do, I don't. But he ended them 3 different ways and wrote all 3 endings and gave it to each beta readers.
Oh, that's crazy.
And then he didn't use any of the 3.
Wow.
He's a
I
madman.
loved your ending that you got, and then it was just like completely different. You had to like reconcile that in your mind.
Right.
That's wild.
The ending I loved is not the actual ending.
It'd be so weird. It's why I would never, ever in a million years want to be a beta. I want the final thing. I started reading Way of Kings Prime when it was released years ago. And immediately I'm like, oh, I don't like this at all. This isn't right. These aren't the characters I know. I couldn't even make it through the prologue. I hated it so much.
I've been a beta reader for a couple of books
against my soul
at this point, and that's hard because then when the real book comes out, I don't want to read it because I'm like, no, I had the version I enjoyed.
Right.
Oh, what did you do with my comments? Did you ignore me? I'm like,
yeah. One more note of criticism. Well, it's not even really criticism. It's more like a me thing. Is I feel like with the Stormlight Archive so far, just as a whole, I feel like I'm enjoying it. I really have liked these books aside from Oathbringer. Um, but I feel like it's not quite like standing up to Mistborn for me. Like I still much prefer Mistborn, whereas like in the way that like I think I just like do not understand the magic system of Stormlight. I think there's like a lot of different things going on, which is really cool, but I am not seeing like how any of them connect. Like with Mistborn, you had a very specific way. You could all boil it down to one thing. Even if you had all these different effects, you could all boil it down to like really two things, because there was like allomancy and then
Furukami, and then there's also
yeah,
Himalurgic. So I kind of disagree with that. There's
yeah,
at minimum three. They're so different from each other.
yeah, but they all play into each other the same way. It all has to do with like a metal being ingested or pierced or something like that. It has to do with like this common thing. And then with Stormlight, it's like you have things like the Night Mother that's able to like grant these like wishes and stuff,
Boom.
but like how does that connect with how people are using Stormlight? Like, are these two like very different things that don't have anything to do with each other, or are they all? I'm just not seeing that yet. I guess
Three
for me,
words.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just
Three
saying.
words. Rhythm of War.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. But honestly, and
Many
as
of
you're
your
saying that,
many of your
Spencer,
questions will be answered right there.
I was thinking like, well, I guess Roshar it's pretty simple. It's you use the different you use light to fund surge binding, and which is you see it, and then you're like, okay, well, what about the Night Mother? And I'm like, or the Night Watcher. I'm like, oh yeah, shit, there are these weird edge cases, which like I can explain the Night Mother a lot more,
Sure.
but
But
it's tough. But it is I do see what you're saying, because at the end of the day, you know, three gods too.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff happening.
the problem with the Stormlight Archive, from your perspective, Spencer, is that it ties in far more heavily to the rest of the Cosmere than anything else has. So Mistborn can stand on its own, and you can just enjoy it, and it's great, and you know the rules, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Stormlight Archive is its own thing in Roshar, but leans into Mistborn, leans into mind blank, the first book.
Warbreaker.
Nope, go back.
Elantris.
Elantris. It leans into Elantris.
Yeah.
It's got ties to Warbreaker. Absolutely. It's all these things are layered into the Stormlight Archive. So I'm like, I've already recommended to people, yeah, you can just read the Stormlight Archive, not read anything else. It'll be a nice story.
Yeah.
You won't understand what you should. You won't appreciate it. If you've read everything else, and then it's just so tied to everything. And that's why, again, you're not going to appreciate it enough on a first time. It's the reread that gives you the Stormlight Archive.
Stormlight's a lot more like the seventh Mistborn book rather than the first trilogy. Although, with that being said, like just Wind of Truth, I was very impressed with. I think people are going to be able to read the first Stormlight 5 books, no problem. There's going to be things they miss and go, huh, that's kind of weird. And it's like big red flashing signs that like this connects to other stuff. But it's so not pivotal to the biggest plots. I think you can read. I was very cautious. That's kind of my biggest worry with Stormlight, especially in Rhythm of War when even more stuff starts coming in.
Yeah.
But after reading all 5 now, I can recommend just Stormlight only to people reading. I would recommend Mistborn first because, like you said, I think it's a much better entry point. It's a lot more constrained. It's a lot easier story to get behind. Shorter books, tighter plots and stuff. But I understand that your feelings towards that for sure, Spencer.
Yeah,
my
and
problem,
again, it's
Devin, with just what you were saying there is if people only read Stormlight Archive, they haven't read the other stuff, they may DNF Stormlight Archive because there's not. It's so deep. There's so much complexity there that they're not getting enough. My wife just asked me yesterday, should I read this, the Stormlight Archive? I'm like, no. Here, let me let you into Sanderson in an easier way so that you will then appreciate the Stormlight Archive. It's just me.
No, I totally agree. I think it is for many reasons, but less so from like the big world and just like this is a it's a definitely a much better entry point. Especially other than the people I know, two people that have only read the first two Mistborn books, and it drives me crazy because it's like, oh, it's
How do
all
you not
about
read
you
the
got it.
first?
Oh, it drives me crazy, crazy. But yeah, I
Seriously.
agree.
Yeah, my whole thing here is like it's not a bad thing. I like that the Stormlight archive is like this big thing that you can go back and like reread and reread and reread and always get something new, and then eventually kind of figure out where it's all going and everything. So like you can reread it and get more and more out of it the more you reread it, and I love that. I just think for me, my first time reading it, it's just like, man, it's a lot, and I just really don't see how it all ties together, and it gets like a little bit frustrating. Obviously not frustrating enough to like DNF or anything like
No,
that.
totally understand. First
But
time.
as someone who like loved Mistborn because of the magic system and like how like puzzle piecey and like connected it was, I feel like that's something that I'm just not quite getting out of Stormlight yet.
Sanderson's writing is there's so much to this stuff that again I enjoyed Mistborn the first time, but a reread of Mistborn it also blows up. It's
Yeah,
like there's so much more there than you realize the first time.
yeah,
All of his stuff is like that, and it's just amazing.
yeah.
But there is something I really do,
To
yeah,
transition.
want to talk about before I have to leave.
Okay.
And I
Yeah,
didn't
so-
respond to your text because I wanted to talk about it on the pod. So, and Jim and Gavin, you have both read Mistborn, where I read the first Mistborn and I tried to read the second one multiple times and I just could not get into it.
Okay.
Brain said no. But so Spencer had texted me and said, how do you understand these books without knowing anything about Hoyd? And I didn't respond because I was like, all right, this would be a good thing to talk about on the pod. But B, my initial reaction is, why would an author write a character into a new series that you wouldn't be able to understand on its own in that series? That you would need the lore from a previous series to understand.
Because Stormlight Archive is partly marketing for Brandon Sanderson. You're supposed to read the rest of the stuff to truly appreciate it. You're not going to get enough about Wit, about Hoyd, from the Stormlight Archive. You're going to have gaps, and there's nothing you can do about that. Gavin, what do you think?
Well, also it kind of the premise is that you understand Hoyd even if you read everything. Like if you read just Stormlight, you have the idea of Hoyd being this mysterious immortal. If you read Mistborn, you have the idea of Hoyd being well, I guess by the end of all the Mistborn books, a mysterious immortal. We still like we learn a lot more about Hoyd. Well, anyway, but I guess I don't. It's so tough for me to take out because I'm someone who's read everything multiple times. So
Yes,
it's so hard for me to get in the mindset of like I'd like to say, you just read Mistborn, like it's all he's just mysterious no matter what. And some people see the mystery and go, huh, there's something there. That's interesting. Some people say this guy's mysterious. Like where are the answers? I don't like it, I assume. And then some people are like, just like Jim said, I want to know more. Is there this character's other places? And I think there'd probably be just like I went Stormlight to Mistborn, and he's much more in the forefront of Stormlight and so minimal in Mistborn.
Yeah.
So see, yeah, I'm not a good person for the question. Like I like getting people who have only read one of the things or not all the things answer that, because for me, I'm so in the weeds.
Yeah.
Relate.
Yeah.
I feel like real quick. I feel like I feel like I understood a lot more about Hoyd when I read Tress of the Emerald Sea.
That's a good point.
Gives
And
you
the
an
other thing I always
interesting
want
side of him, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I just want to say is another reason why Hoyd is tough for me too, where I think most of my Hoyd knowledge sitting here today, well, actually now it's a little different after Win and Truth, but before Win and Truth, most of my Hoyd knowledge came from Word of Brandon because I'm deep in the fandom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so like only having information you know about Hoyd coming from the books is so foreign to me because I feel like you know so little. rather than because he actually spells kind of out what Hoyd's deal is in Wind of Truth. Spoiler, I guess. Sorry. I don't think anyway. Like you learn more. I think it's fair to say you learn more about everyone, and Hoyd is no different.
Sure.
But like that stuff, and I think that'll be stuff for people who aren't deep in the fandom. We're like, oh, like okay, I get it. Like this makes sense. But for me, reading it is like, oh yeah, this is what I knew because it wasn't really spoilers. It's just people would ask about Hoyd because Hoyd's on. People love Hoyd. People want to know more, and like we're gonna get Hoyd's origin story with Dragonsteel trilogy at some point.
Wasn't that what the Sunlit Man is? Isn't that Hoyd?
No. That's I'm going to be very careful talking about that. But no, it's I think the schedule is Mistborn Era 3. I can't remember if it comes before or after the back 5 of Stormlight, but no, it's a trilogy, and it is Hoyd's origin story, and it is presumably about the shattering of Adonalsium. Yeah.
So 2 things that came to mind here. One, I read the Stormlight Archive, the first 3 books, before I'd read most of the other Cosmere. And then when I did the reread, I'd read everything else in the Cosmere. It made such a huge difference. I did not appreciate the Stormlight Archive to the degree on the reread. I'm like, whoa. I mean, it's you have to have the rest of the stuff to really get it. And Hoyd is part of that. In understanding Adonalsium and all the rest of the shards, the pieces, to understand what's going on there, you just really kind of need it.
And I think a lot of it comes down to the type of reader too. For me, like I was someone who, I didn't know anything about Malazan going in. I read it and I'm just like, oh yeah, maybe I won't learn about this for another 5 books. That's fine by me because there's all this other cool stuff, and I'm getting hit with cool stuff all the time. And just for me, just poured into me. I got a good memory. I can take it. I binge this stuff, so it's generally when I'm in big series, it's always fresh.
The other thing,
but if you're not that type of reader and you read these books slow and you're not deep in the fandom, like it's an entirely, or not entirely, but it's a very different experience.
The other thing that was mentioned was Tress and the Emerald Sea. You learn things about Hoyd there that apply really big to the end of Rhythm of War and the beginning of Wind and Truth. And you're not there yet.
Interesting. Okay.
But
and the end of Wind and Truth, for that matter.
And I'm not there yet. Yeah, it's great. just trust us, believe the process, Spencer, and keep going.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think the origin of my question to Sam was I think there's a couple points in Oathbringer where the name, like the actual name Hoyd, is brought up. But the one that prompted me to send that question was Hoyd's apprentice in Roshar, like the world singer. I forget what his name is.
Sigzil, yeah.
Sigzil, yeah. And he specifically mentions Hoyd. He's like, Hoyd was my mentor or whatever. And it prompted me to think, I'm like, what? Like, who did Sam think Hoyd was? Because if she hadn't read the other ones and hadn't heard the name Hoyd before, then the thought for that question was just like, okay, so what did she think that meant? And so I'm curious, Sam, what you thought of Sigzil when you were reading these before you knew anything about Hoyd.
I don't know any about Sigzil, but I think like with Hoyd, I just originally thought he was one of the people from the first book in the beginning.
The heralds. That's what most people think. They assume he's a herald. Yeah,
he's holding the desolation back and whatnot. I was like, oh, he's going to be one of them. That's where my brain always went.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I was like, he's been around forever. Like, I got the gist of it,
Sure.
Like, he's really old.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. I gotta say, it is so much fun. Like, Hoyd, like, honestly, Hoyd is probably my favorite part of the Cosmere, just like in general. Like, I think Hoyd is such a cool thing to have in a series. When I realized that Hoyd was in every single book, it made me just like want to hunt for what character is Hoyd, like what's he disguising himself as, and it made it so like that was the first, like I Mistborn was the first thing I read by Brandon Sanderson, but after that, somebody had like briefly told me about Hoyd, not really spoiling anything, but just somebody had basically said Hoyd is in every single book. And I was like, what? And that like really started this love of looking through everything and trying to figure out where he's at, like a Where's Waldo or something. And I love in this book in particular all of the Hoyd stuff where we get him just like using all sorts of different magics that he's collected. We see like a little bit of like Mistborn magic. We see a little bit of Warbreaker magic where he like right at the epilogue there, he awakens the little doll and his cloak goes gray or whatever. Like I was like, oh, that's super cool.
And you won't get that if you haven't read Warbreaker. You know,
Right.
Yeah, you gotta have some context.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I've really been enjoying the Hoyd stuff for sure. Sam, I know you got to go. Any final thoughts from you before you dip?
No, I mean, I think that was like a really great place for me to stop. That was like the main thing. I was like been thinking about the last few days, but I was like, no, wait for the pod, like so we can talk about this like together, because I just wanted to get I knew other people were going to be on here, and I was like, I want to hear what everybody else thinks, because I don't know, I guess I'm just like a stickler for don't include something in a series that you have to know that's based off another series. If you're not going to say this is required, then make it all part of the same series. You know what I mean? And like, that is just like in general, like an annoyance of, okay, I do want to know everything, but I don't really want to read a whole nother series to like know all of these other things when I've tried it twice. Read book 1 of Mistborn twice, loved book 1 twice. Hate book 2. I cannot get past the first 100 pages of book 2. I just cannot do it. It is so bad. For
we're
me,
we're gonna make you do it for the podcast sometime, because dear God, you are missing like one of the best finales in fantasy. Period.
And I get all of that, but it's one of those things where it's like, I know everyone says it's going to be so good, but I don't agree at the moment. So, like, it's really hard for me to force myself to do this. You know what I mean?
My wife, I introduced her to Mistborn as the place to enter the Cosmere. She read book 1, loved it. Book 2, she powered through. And book 3, she was like, really? So I get it. You know, some people don't get totally all in. It happens.
Yeah,
I think you would finish book 3 and say that was one of the most amazing things I've ever read in my life. Like,
listen, but he doesn't like the Wheel of Time. So
here's the thing: like, don't ruin anything for me.
Sure,
because maybe I'll read it one day.
Yeah,
but when Kelsier is killed off, and then we're left with freaking what's her name, Vin was it?
It's seriously like, oh God, there's so
like,
much.
I don't care. I'm like, I do not care. I do not care at all. I need more of Kelsier. I do not care. I do not care.
You should read The Secret Histories at some point. I'm just saying.
What, Donna Tartt?
No.
It's called
Mistborn Secret Histories.
Mistborn Secret Histories.
It explains it explains some stuff about Kelsier.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
definitely.
All right. Well, guys, it has been really fun chatting, and I have to go do something really miserable, and I am dreading it, and I don't want to go do it. So please give me
positive vibes. Positive.
Yes.
Sending them your way.
All right, guys, it was great seeing you.
All right, Sam.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, so what else do we have in the notes here that you guys really want to talk about? Because we could talk about, since we're talking about Cosmere connections, we could talk about Nightblood.
Fun to have Nightblood join us in the series. Absolutely.
Yeah, I loved Nightblood. I loved seeing that he drains Stormlight, which, if I remember correctly, is similar to what he did in Warbreaker, right? But just with their magic system.
Now, you realize there's more Warbreaker here than just Nightblood, right?
Is Azure... Who's the girl that married the king? Is that Ciri?
Ciri, yep.
Yeah. But go a little further.
Okay, so Azure is Siri.
No.
Because at one
No.
point her
No.
hair changes color. That's
You're close.
You're close.
but
the
not
other
quite.
sister. Is she the other
Yes,
sister?
The other sister.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Well,
Okay.
technically, there's another
Vienna?
sister who's a monk, but we don't
Yeah,
count
we
her
didn't
because she
talk
gets
about
one
her.
line in the whole book.
Oh,
But yeah,
that'd be
it's
interesting
Vivenna.
if this was her. Oh. Okay, so Azure is Vienna.
And she's searching for two people or two
Uh,
things, two entities.
Okay, so she mentions Nightblood at some point, so I assume she's looking for Nightblood. Somehow she got separated from Nightblood.
Somehow, but
Okay.
who was the person who had Nightblood?
The godling guy.
Vasher.
Vasher, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's not
so
who you were really thinking of, but Vasher, yes.
okay,
yes.
so we haven't seen him yet, but we've seen.
Are you sure?
Have we? Okay,
So what in
because he doesn't have
Shadesmar,
Nightblood. It's Seth that has Nightblood.
he does not have Nightblood, but in
Right.
Shadesmar, Adolin starts doing a kata, and Kaladin joins him because Adolin's swordmaster taught him this kata, and then the same swordmaster is the one that Kaladin was working with in
pit
Words of
or
Radiance.
bins or wherever, that sand place where they practice, and who trains him?
The guy who got Renner to jump head off the wall to like become familiar.
the one who's kind of a monk, who's
not.
not like the other monks. He's a little different.
Is it Ryle or God, what's his name?
And
He had a
so
really-
just to finish my point in Shadesmar, and then as they're doing it, Azure comes up and starts doing the kata with them, and they're like, and Idol's like, how do you know this? They're like, oh, my swordmaster taught me this too. So yeah, Zahel is the name you're looking for.
That's the name.
Oh, Zahel? Okay.
Zahel.
I don't recognize that. But I assume it's the guy that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Um
And you get hints in like Words of Radiance, and at one point you're in his head, and he's like, he was going to sleep, and he waited for the voice, but the voice didn't come. He hadn't heard it in years, and he always uses color metaphors. He's always talking.
There's even a moment where he does something and something turns gray. It's there.
Really?
It's all there.
Okay.
Yeah, he uses Awakening a bunch, actually, if you're paying close attention.
Really? Oh my god. Okay.
Again, reread, my friend. You catch it all on the reread.
Okay. So he's Vasher,
Mm-hmm.
and then Azure is Vienna.
Yeah.
Vivenna. It's
Vivenna.
Vivenna. Isn't it? Not
Vivenna.
Vienna. Vienna's a place in
Vivenna.
Austria. I want to visit someday. That's not the character.
Okay. Vivenna. And then Nightblood is with Zeth. So obviously, like, don't spoil anything, but where you guys are at right now, do you know how they came to Roshar and like how they got separated?
I don't. Do you,
Okay.
Gavin?
I do not.
Okay.
Whoa.
So it's not
I know
in
a little bit. I do know a little bit more, but
Okay.
to say I know that story would no. I don't know that story.
Wow. Okay.
Remember,
You
there's going to
learn-
be
you
5
learn
more
stuff.
books.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but this is, I assume 5 is like the end of this cast of characters.
Well, as I've had it explained, Gavin, you're deeper in the fandom than I am, but it's going to be just some new characters, but still very related, very connected, is what I.
Yeah, it's the end of the story arcs. Yeah, I don't know how much I want to talk. Like, I can talk about this, but yeah, no. I think it's not a spoiler to say that there are characters. It's not like a giant time skip. It's going to be years in the future, but you know, it's they're the characters from the first 5 will, at least some of them for sure, appear in the back 5.
Okay, because I thought the next set of Stormlight books was the next era, like the next.
It's
No,
different.
it's not like Mistborn in that it not quite like that. No, there's not that big a time skip.
I understood it's going to continue the story, but now through different POVs.
Yeah, the Stormlight is not 2 series of 5. It is 1 series of 10, but there's like a midway point.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
So I'd love to know what you thought of Elokar's story in this book.
I don't know. I didn't really feel like. I mean, like he got killed. He wanted to go back to save his homeland.
I
He
was crushed when he was killed. Did you not feel that?
I didn't really care.
Taking
Oh.
out the thing Shallan painted of him, swearing the first oath, and it's Moash.
He's
That
right
gets me.
there. He's about to become a Radiant,
Yeah.
step, and
So I guess that's a question I have. That's actually a big question I have that we could talk about. Is I do not understand the oaths, and I didn't even know that Elhokar could become a Radiant or like could say the oaths, and then also, so like what makes someone be able to say the oaths? Like what do they have to have beforehand? Can anybody say the oaths and become a Radiant or what? And then also there's a point where Kaladin is like trying to say the oath, but like he can't, and I'm like, why? Brandon Sanderson, fuck Moash, yeah, for sure, yeah.
sorry, a lot of work to get that.
And then like why could Kaladin not just say all, like, I don't know, is there 4 or 5 oaths? Like why could he not just like sit here and just say all of the oaths back to back and have all of the power? Like,
Journey before destination, my
about
friend.
meaning
Journey
it.
before destination.
okay, I don't know. Well, Gavin, what were you saying?
Sorry, yeah, but yeah, Jim's point is correct. Journey before destination. That exact question is asked explicitly in the text in some way or form in actually book 5, and it's answered pretty explicitly. But yeah, the answer is journey before destination. Like you can't just say the words; you have to mean what they're saying. And Kaladin couldn't say that honestly to himself. Whatever that oath is, he knew what the words were, but he couldn't say them knowing he meant them because it's a hard oath, a hard thing for him.
Wind and Truth illustrates that,
and that's all meshed into the depression personality stuff. And yeah, I can tell you a lot more to understand the oaths. I can explain it in 4 words. Read Wind and Truth, but that obviously is not satisfying. But yeah, it's not a matter of like the saying the words is just a physical manifestation of like there are some orders where you don't actually need to say the words. Like you'll see, I think Lift is maybe one of them. I think for instance, we're talking about Edge Dancer a little bit because you read Edge Dancer. Lift swears an oath, I believe, in Edge Dancer without saying the words. I think she just like it's an internal thing of personal growth and
that's it.
Personal
whatnot. Growth, huge phrase you just said there. That's it. You reach the point where you are those words now. If somebody could have told you the words to say, and if you said them, it would mean nothing. It would not do anything. You have to have reached the point in your personal journey where this is now who you are. And that's when it has meaning.
Okay.
So anyone's capable, but
he has to journey through these experiences. He must reach a point where this becomes real for him.
So I'd love to go back and see what the oaths are and see what was happening before that to make them actually like get to that oath, because right now for me like the oaths are like really disconnected from anything I've read. I don't really know, like you're saying it's part of their personal journey. I'm not really sure like
well think of it for Shallan too. She doesn't do oaths. Everyone has the first oath. Everyone, life before death, journey before destination. Yeah. But Lightweavers don't. Oh, is that spoilers? No, I think you learned that in this book. Lightweavers don't swear oaths; they give truths. So it's different for the oath. It's
accept
really
truth. That's the key for them. True. They have to accept it for themselves.
Oh, okay. So like Shallan, like she's accepting herself, and she's accepting that she's like that was kind of her personal journey throughout this book, is like accepting herself and realizing that she at her base level is enough, rather than having to fill all these different personalities and stuff.
And that's why Brandon, in my opinion, is so brilliant with Stormlight, because he spends so much character work, character development, and growing these characters, but there's such direct plot import in what they're doing, because when they reach certain levels, have these character growth moments, then like you see the manifestation of that is swearing the next oath, telling the next truth, whatever it is. So it's his way of strongly tying character development in with the actual plot.
Interesting. Okay.
Because you level up every time you swear an oath, or
right.
They don't just roll for initiative in this show. They have to actually develop the ability, go through the experience, and reach that level.
Right. Okay. So when Elhokar was saying, so he was saying the first oath, like,
yeah. And they gave hints of that in Words of Radiance, that he was pondering. He was leaning towards this direction. So I loved it that they show it in Oathbringer. He gets there and he's saying the oath and then beat Moash.
Because they were foreshadowing him seeing cryptics way back in Way of Kings. Also, speaking of secrets, Spencer, did you notice that Hoyd scooped up Elhokar's cryptic at the very end of the book in the epilogue?
Oh, that was Elhokar's cryptic?
Because he was coming into the physical realm because Elhokar was swearing the first oath, and so Hoyd went snooping around after and presumably bonded him.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't realize it was Elhokar's. I figured it was like a spren of some kind.
To be fair, I'm not even sure that's expressly ever said in the text, but it's pretty much what
easy to
happened.
miss. Easy to miss.
Yeah. So I wonder if, because obviously we know that Hoyd goes around, he's collecting all these different magics and stuff, and so by him gaining that spren, is that what allows him to be a radiant of some kind? Is just having the spren, is that what makes somebody a radiant?
The spren bond is what makes someone a radiant.
Okay.
That's what we see. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Now I really want to go back to Tress and see if he's using Stormlight magic in that final scene there where he's fighting the whatever that big bad is at the end of Tress. He was using a bunch of different kinds of magic and stuff.
So I want to jump to something.
Okay.
This is going on. I don't know how long you want the episode to go, but I want to jump to something I saw in your notes that I saw you didn't have clear.
Sure.
And it has to do with the last major battle that happens in this book.
Okay.
And you've got that this red mist shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking that's connected with odium.
Yes.
And it's not.
Well, because isn't the red mist the thrill?
Yes.
Like the physical manifestation
and the thrill is not odium.
Okay.
It's something else.
Well, okay. Are we told what it is from this book?
Well, in this book, they talk about, Gavin, they do talk about the things that start with a U, right?
Yeah, they do, because of Kholinar. They're going after, there's 3 unmade in Kholinar.
Right.
There's the one that causes the feasting. There's Shah Anat, which causes the corruption of Spren. And then there's also my least favorite of all the unmade, which is the one that Elhokar's wife swallows the gem for. And then later Amaram swallows the gem for and becomes a gem monster. So there's 3 unmade in Kholinar, and the thrill.
The thrill is an
unmade.
Okay.
Yeah. So
and you were confused about the gem.
The gem. I don't know. I could not understand what the unmade.
It's not just any old gem. It's a perfect gem. Okay. So there are some gems that are designed in such a way that they have such perfection, they can encapsulate one of the unmade and hold it captive. Whereas a lot of these gems, Navani's been doing experiments with this, getting gems inside of, for fabrials.
Right.
Okay. This is taking it next level. A perfect gem can hold one of the unmade, and that's what they capture the thrill into.
And the easiest thing to think of what unmade are is they're just big, powerful spren. And that's because that's literally what they are. Now, the name unmade evokes some stuff, but what they are spren. Big, like
uber spren.
Yeah. Okay, so the thrill, like they inherently have the thrill in them?
No, the thrill is, so like
the thrill moves around from places to place.
Yeah. So like for instance, in Way of Kings, and Dalinar's fighting and he's feeling the thrill, and eventually they stop feeling the thrill. It's because the thrill moves around. It's very similar to remember back in Way of Kings, Mr. T is mining the death rattles, and people,
Mr.
when they're
T.
dying, they start, they give a prophecy. And so he starts killing people just to try and get as many prophecies as he can to see the future.
Right.
And he can only that's the Black Fisher. But I think it's the Black Fisher. Anyway. So yeah, no, the Unmade move around. And so people only felt the thrill when that Unmade was in the vicinity.
And it loved Alethkar. Absolutely. It's like,
and it's
ooh,
been
these are
hanging in
warrior
Alethkar for a
people that
long
love to
time.
fight. I'm hanging out with these guys. But
so the Unmade generates the thrill.
yes, it is the thrill.
So same as in
is.
Kolinar, when the thing, like, it just made people want to feast and have orgies and stuff. Like that's what that thing did.
Yep.
And then the thrills, that's what this thing does.
Oh, okay. So whereas the normal Spren are reacting to certain emotions and stuff, and like they accumulate when somebody feels like guilt or whatever.
This one generates.
The Unmade generate it. Okay, got it. Okay.
And that thrill is a very dangerous thing. I mean, it has caused the whole Alethi culture to want to just fight and destroy and be glad with the number of others it has killed. And so they're like, we need to get this sucker under control. And they capture it. So
is there a reason that the Unmade is only around the Alethi culture, or
it's not only around the Alethi culture.
But it has been largely around the Alethi for a long time. And that question is a good question. Is that, on accident or on purpose? Because while the Unmade aren't pure just like creatures of Odium, the thrill isn't just Odium, it's a separate entity. The Unmade are related and have a relationship with Odium, and perhaps Odium, has different levels of control over them. I guess we don't quite really know.
Okay.
We get a little more information on that in Rhythm of War again.
Okay. So Amaram had a gem heart. How did he get that?
So
that is literally shoved through his chest.
Yelignar, yeah, that's it. So we first see Yelignar back in Kolinar at the palace when Elokar's wife is all crazy. It's because she has already ingested the gemstone, and so the way Unmade aren't simple. Like there's a wide array of Unmade, and Bat Edo Mishram is way different than Shah Anat. So there are a wide array of them, but specifically, in my opinion, Yelignar is the most boring, because pretty much all he is he, I guess, lives in a gemstone. If you consume the gemstone, you turn into, like, you combine with him, I get his essence or something, that you combine together to become a gem monster. Yeah, that's pretty much. And so that gem later gets given to Amaram, and he has the lackluster, in my opinion, Kaladin fight. That's the resolution of the Amaram plotline is, in my opinion, the weakest part of Oathbringer.
It was a little cheap, but at the same time, I was like, yeah, take this sucker out. I hated Amaram at that point, but you're right, it's a little cheesy.
Yeah. Okay. So how did they... I was a little confused, and maybe it was just because I was going through it so fast, but that final battle, Amaram dies, and I think at that point Dalinar has the gem, right? Does he come out of the battle with the gem?
Lift and Seth get the gem from it, because two different gems, right? The Yelignar gem and the perfect gemstone to capture the Unmade, two separate gemstones.
Yes. Okay. So do they both have Unmade in them?
So one is just Yelignar's vessel, and we don't really actually know much more about, like, Yelignar, you have to ingest his gemstone. There's some relationship there. Okay. On the other hand, it's just a normal perfect gemstone, which is very rare because it's giant and perfect crystalline structure. And because normal, like, if you think of it, you put Stormlight in a normal gemstone, it fades away before the next high storm. You put Stormlight in a perfect gemstone, it just stays there forever because it never escapes.
Whoa, okay. So they have the perfect gemstone. Did they kill Yelignar then?
They trapped him in the gemstone. I can't remember. We know what they did with the gemstone. I guess can't remember if we learned it at the beginning of this book or the start of the next one. I think it might not be to the start of Rhythm of War, but safe to assume they do something with it. But he's not killed. It's like
they can't really kill that entity. It's an
Yeah.
eternal kind of entity, but they
Okay.
can capture.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. So I guess that kind of answers the question I had around that, because I really was not sure. I don't know why I didn't pick up on like what these unmade were, or like what the gemstones were
It's
used
a
for.
lot, man. It's a lot. The other
Yeah.
burning question I have is, tell me your thoughts on Taravangian.
Um. Again, I don't really have too many. He's the other king that Dalinar was initially siding with. He was planning on screwing over Dalinar the whole time, and then at the end, Odium goes to him, and Taravangian decides to help Odium as long as he spares what's the
Kharbranth.
city?
Carbranth, his
Kharbranth.
kingdom, his
Yeah.
city
Okay.
kingdom, city state.
Yeah. Um, I don't really have too many thoughts about him. I don't know. Is there something I should have picked up?
I mean, you have it in your notes, that Taravangian reveals he's the one behind Zeth, the
Yes.
assassin in white.
Yes, that
Okay,
is right.
he's
Yeah.
got this whole master plan in his
Right.
head. I mean, this is a crazy
Not just in his head. He's
cool
got a
character.
book. He's got
Yeah.
it in a book.
Right. To have gone to the Night Watcher and to get this gift, to be brilliant enough to save the world, but the trade-off is that other times you're stupid enough to only need diapers. It's like, whoa, what a mind-blowing thing.
I don't
Taravangian.
know. I was going to bring this up earlier when I was talking about not fully understanding the magic system. And that was one of the other things. I was like, then you have this Taravangian guy who's smart sometimes and not smart other times. I didn't even think that he had probably gotten that from the Night Mother.
Yep. He went, asked for his gift, and
Interesting.
he's
Well, we
he has a
we know he went
fascinating
to
character.
we know he went to the Grove for sure. That's where the
Mm.
the Night Watcher lives.
Okay.
Is it Night Watcher, Night Mother? I don't know. My mind
No.
starts to blend on these things.
Yeah, I can't remember now.
Anyways, that critter.
Yeah.
Yeah, asked for a gift, and we know that one always gives a blessing with a curse.
Right.
So in Taravangian's case, we see in this book, the blessing is sometimes he's really, really smart, and the curse is sometimes he's really, really dumb, and it
Yeah.
balances out perfectly. So we've got this amazing book. They're following the diagram. Is that the name?
Mhm.
Okay. This on the one perfect day. He was just next level incredible. So smart he invented his own language.
Right.
Okay. And then he's had the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And Taravangian, is he a good guy or a bad guy? That's the question I throw to you, Spencer.
Ooh. I think he's more of like a pathetic guy. Like I think
Pathetic guy.
Not the
Love
word
it.
that comes to mind. Interesting.
like I think like especially on the days that he's like really stupid, like there's some days that he's really smart, but on the days that he's stupid, like everybody has to like make decisions for him, and like there's like a test that he takes every day to see like
that he wrote.
like, yeah, that he wrote, yeah. And it's like okay, and then Odium shows up and he like cowers before Odium and he's like, yeah, I'll do whatever. So he's like clearly like kind of being used like a minion of Odium's. And yeah, I don't know. I see him as like kind of
Gavin and I
pathetic.
look at each other knowingly.
Yeah, I can't. I don't even want to look at Jim.
Right.
Like I got no freaking comment.
I love that Taravangian has that moment when he realizes he's smart enough on some days to decide that some people should just be put to death. It would be more convenient.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a good thing.
Yeah, there's
I gotta
some
rein
days
in
where
the
he's
intelligence.
like too smart to make decisions. I thought that was really funny.
Which has some deeper meaning for real life. Just saying.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely know some people that are too smart for their own good.
Also,
Too
I'm just going to
smart
say
for other
one thing
people's good.
to Jim, and I'll say nothing more on it, but because he's coming up to it, Interlude 7. We can move on.
Push me to move. Read faster. Read faster.
we can move right along.
Yes.
A couple things about Shallan real quick that I'll just kind of breeze through is I loved everything with Shallan and Adolin. I love this relationship so much. There's not too many relationships in the Stormlight Archive where I'm like, that's such a good relationship. But I love Shallan and Adolin. I loved their first maybe not their first, but one of their first like scenes earlier in the book where they're having like a little date in her room and they're like eating and stuff. And Pattern had to be their chaperone. And he's like,
no touch.
Yeah, he kept asking, he kept asking like, he didn't understand what a chaperone is. So he kept asking, is this what I am to stop you from doing? Is this what I am to stop you from doing? And then later on, they start like making out, and he's like, "No mating."
Right? I gotta tell you though, with that relationship, I love that whole interaction that you're describing. But Adolin is the king in that relationship.
Oh yeah, he's so good.
He's been so, so lost, so helpless in his relationships with women, and yet in this relationship with he and Shallan, he's the rock. He's the one that makes it all work, and I just freaking love Adolin.
All he had to do was find the perfect basket case.
There it
right.
is. There it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
It helps that she's hot, apparently.
It helps that she's hot. Yeah. Redheads, dude, something I keep saying, I'm like, all these characters that are into redheads in these books, I'm with you. There's something Shallan says about relationships. He's like, oh, I'm really bad at relationships. I've never like been good at them. And she essentially says, no, you're good at relationships. You messed up all the ones that were wrong for you until you got to me. Good job.
There is deep truth in that, man.
Yeah.
Deep truth.
I felt that one. I was like, oh, man.
Garth Brooks has a song all about that. It's one of my favorite of his. Yep. Thank goodness for wrecking the bad ones, because you get the good one in the end. That's it.
Yeah. Oh man, so good.
Also, I can't help myself but do a little trolling, and it is interesting how we. Never mind. I won't say that. Never mind.
No, come
what?
On.
No,
now you gotta
say
it.
It was an interesting choice Brandon made that we didn't see Shallan and Adolin's wedding.
Yeah, what was up with that?
Interesting.
I was like, surely we'll get the wedding.
Well, let me say this. No comment.
All right. Okay.
Big old no comment.
Oh,
big old Raffo.
There may have been a reason.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I want to move on to talking about Shallan and Yasna reuniting, because I think this is the most anticlimactic thing I've ever read, and it was such a huge letdown for me. I don't know if I like Yasna at all. And when she becomes the queen at the end of this book, my eyes rolled so hard they almost flopped out of my head. I was like, are you kidding me? Yasna's the queen? Like, okay. Like, Dalinar fits so much better. Either that or Adolin. But then for Yasna, I was like, God, okay, I guess. Like, I don't know. I just didn't like.
Well, you're probably right there with a lot of the other people in Alethkar, because they didn't like Yasna. She's a different kind of cat.
Right. Yeah.
But I'll say for that scene specifically, I was with you at the beginning, but for that scene specifically, it worked for me because like in my head it's like, okay, Dalinar's king of Theru, and they're having the conversation, and I was thinking it out. Okay, Renarin, but the no, Adolin, and I fell for it hook, line, and sinker in terms of
Yep.
my, I guess,
Made sense.
unconscious sexism. It's like, well, I won't say that. It's like the joke in terms of, someone gets in a car accident and, anyways, so the doctor's a mother and you just don't assume it's the same thing. And so I got caught off guard by it. So I freaking loved it because, especially at that point, I love Jasna. So I was like, it blindsided me, even though it shouldn't have. And for that reason, I loved it.
The key with the reunion between Yasna and Shallan, I loved in that it was demonstrating the fact Shallan has grown to a point. I don't need to be reliant on Yasna, and Yasna's like, well, of course you did, because that's what I trained you for. That's her attitude. This is what you should be. It made sense to me.
Yeah, for sure. I just think I didn't like it because I loved like Shallan's chapters in 1 and 2 because she was growing. Like Yasna, like quote unquote, dies early on in Words of Radiance, and you see Shallan grow in so many ways where she's like very much becoming her own person, becoming very self-sufficient, sure. Works her way right into Dalinar's like court or brilliant. Not like Dalinar's court, but like Elhakar's court, and just like mixes in with everybody. And I'm like, yeah, Shallan on her own is sick. And then Yasna comes back and she's like, yeah, you're my protege again. And I wanted to be like, you a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I wanted to be, and like, so did Shallan. Like Shallan is like, she is so far past like just teaming up with Yasna. Not that Yasna isn't like crazy powerful and could teach her more and stuff, but I had just gotten to this point where I was like, Shallan has like her own storyline now that I'm enjoying. And then Yasna comes in and she's like, yeah, you're going to be my pupil again. It's just like, oh, God. I hated it.
To that point, I wanted to say it or I forgot. I totally agree with you because like I distinctly remember like during the first part of Oathbringer, I was building up the reunion. I could not wait for Jasna to get back. I was super excited. And then I think it was a very purposeful decision by Brandon. I think it works for the plot, and it made sense for exactly the reasons you're describing. If she had just went back, so I think I view it as a failure on Yasna's part, and so does she, for that matter. She says it pretty explicitly. But yeah. I don't know what I was expecting in terms of the reunion and Yasna rejoining the fold or entering the fold really to begin with. And I don't know what I was expecting, but I still was disappointed because it was like a wet fart in terms of like, oh, like this is, come on, like this is not what I wanted, because for those very reasons. But it's purposeful because Shallan is, she's moved past that. She's no longer in that role, and a lot of this is colored by future stuff too. But I remember being very frustrated with the reunion and very let down, despite I think it probably being the right call, because if Shallan had just I don't know what it would have been a better, thing going for them, for Shallan's like storyline and the plot in general. So I think it works, but I was still disappointed and let down in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. What was up with the Spren cult? What was that about?
A little entity called Ja-Anat. And what can we say about Ja-Anat? Ja-Anat is a Spren that Shallan saw like in the mirror when she gets into the Oathgate in Kholinar. It's like the black creature with the white eyes. She is an unmade. Her name is Ja-Anat, and her thing is corrupting. I can't remember how much we learned. Corrupting Spren to turn them. Well, I'll leave it at that. She can corrupt Spren, so that's where you're seeing the different colors and they're acting weird and looking weird. That is entirely her influence.
Okay, so I thought those Spren that were corrupted were just Spren of Odium.
No, they're purposely Spren that have been changed by Ja-Anat.
Okay, so is that what Renarin has?
Bingo.
Okay. Because Renarin has like this weird Spren, and then Yasna was going to kill him at the end, and I'm not sure why she decided not to. Maybe she just realized that he wasn't doing anything wrong.
I think she realized she couldn't do it. The bigger reason is for Brandon to show us that while you can see the future in this world, the future isn't written in stone and it's one of only many futures. So I think that's kind of the purpose of the scene, to show us as like, yes, this was the future that was foresaw, but it didn't happen. And so like, even because, it's safe to say the gods, well, we see, Honor says it, the gods can see the future, but there's not one future. There's tons of futures. And so I think that's kind of really, because it's a little unnerving when Taravangian comes in and Odium comes in and he shows Taravangian his big golden tapestry of the future, and he's got it all marked out. Meanwhile, very interesting that the part around Renarin is blackened. Kind of interesting, big importance there probably. So it's like, yeah, people can see the future, but there's, it's more of a multiverse. Like, decisions can be made, and there's a million futures, and which one is this? It's not a timeline thing, but which one? So I think that's a big thing, and I think it's just like Jasna is an analytical type whatever person, but when your cousin's sitting there on the ground crying, saying "Do it," like, what kind of monster do you have to be?
Right. Yeah, I wonder if his I didn't catch the tapestry thing, but I wonder if his future was blacked out because he has that spren, and maybe that like changes things for him as far as being able to like view his timeline. I
think that's a reasonable assumption.
Okay. I want to talk about Shadesmar, because this is the most time that we've gotten in Shadesmar.
Sure.
Other than this Mistborn Secret History.
More to come too.
I need to reread Secret History now that I know like what Shadesmar is.
Because in Mistborn, they would just call like pretty much what Kelsier is doing the entire time is like, that's their Shadesmar. They don't Shades. I think Brandon's going towards Shadesmar being a more colloquial term for the cognitive realm everywhere, but it seems to be starting in Roshar is where it's the name, it seems, came about in terms of as a overarching thing for the cognitive realm.
Yeah, because I know that Kelsier was moving through the cognitive realm, but I guess my question is the cognitive realm the same everywhere, or does Roshar have its own cognitive realm and then like Scadrial has its own cognitive realm?
Yeah, more accurately, it's not the same anywhere. We see in Roshar, it's all a lot of spheres and gems and stuff, and it's reflected in what people see. If you read back Mistborn Secret History, it's mists everywhere. Presumably, Nalthis and the Warbreaker world, apparently we haven't seen its cognitive realm, but apparently it's very different. So we don't know how they intersect. I think it's kind of, there's an area which would be all Roshar, and then there's like an expanse between the different cognitive realms, which we haven't explored yet.
Yeah.
We don't really know how that works, but no, cognitive realms are how they manifest is kind of based off the physical realm in many ways. So no, they're all different.
Okay. So did they explain, because I know they get into Shadesmar, and they're like, where there's water, there's going to be stone here, and so we got to get to where there's water. And they do that, and they make their way to a city, and then they hop on a boat. But does it explain how the boat is able to travel through the spheres?
So I think like if you put a bunch of glass beads and you put a wooden boat on a bunch of glass beads and some weight in it, it's gonna float. The travel, how it is moved, is the interesting part, and they go into how I think mandras are what they're called, and it's a type of spren, and they're on leashes, and they pretty much like horse-drawn carriages, but through boats in the water, but they're towed by mandras.
Interesting, because that was a cool reveal, was that there was cities in Shadesmar, and there's actual like towns.
Oh yeah. No, I was so blown away. I didn't think there would be. I didn't think the Spren had their own cities. I was really surprised when we made it to Shadesmar. Like, I shouldn't have been that surprised based off what we've seen in Shadesmar in the past, but I really like exploring the realm, so I was here for it. And like, getting all the Cosmere hints, like when Kaladin, that's this book, right? When Kaladin goes to the lighthouse keeper, And he asks, "Oh, like what heightening are you?" And he goes, "Heightening? What the hell are you talking about?" He goes, "What? You're a radiant?" So like all that stuff to know that there's some sort of economy, there's travel.
There's people that are in the know for sure.
And presumably Vivenna says she traveled to Roshar through the cognitive realm, so presumably there's a way to get from one cognitive realm on a world to another, but we don't really quite know how that works.
Oh, it's so interesting. And then the spren that we see in like the real world are just like a fraction of what they are in Shadesmar.
Yeah.
Like the fear spren, if I remember correctly, they were like these giant fish and they had these antennae. Or like they were
and
in
then
the
all
beads.
you
I don't know
see
if they
in
were
the
fish.
physical realm is the saliva dripping off them or something cool like that.
Right, yeah.
I
no,
like
it's
that
the
as well.
top of their antennas that you see. It's like
or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, so, we find out Syl used to live in a Spren city and was bonded to an older man who was killed, and it left her broken. And then she said she sought out Kaladin when he called, and he's like, when I called, and she's like, or when you were going to call or whatever. And it's like, okay, so there's like some time and space spending here a little bit.
In the Cosmere, we call it spiritual realm mumbo jumbo. Is the technical term.
Yeah.
You have so much more to learn in Rhythm of War about
I'm so
this
excited.
general area that we just can't talk about right now, and it's hard.
And I'll also say that exact thing is said, Spencer, is somewhat addressed in Wind and Truth as well.
What's that? Hearing his call.
Hearing the call, yeah.
Okay.
They get into some of that stuff.
There's
there's a lot of history on Roshar. People have been doing stuff for many thousands of years. It's very interesting.
Sure.
Doing a lot of stuff.
Something I picked up on, just like a really basic Cosmere connection, I'm sure, is Taravangian tells Dalinar that there are stories of a metal that falls from the sky that can block shard blade. He's like, it's like silver but lighter, and immediately I thought of aluminum.
Well, you see it in this book, right?
Do you?
So the whole time they're like, Fabrials aren't working Kolinars and we see why. When you use surge binding, it draws the screamers, which draw the heavenly ones. So they weren't using Fabrials. And then Kaladin's like, yo, how are you getting so much? How are you getting food? How are you feeding the city? And Azure eventually shows him they have a soulcaster, not the device, the person. Well, I guess technically both, but in an aluminum lined room, soulcasting food.
Oh, see, I didn't even.
And it's told, and it's hinted. I can't remember. I can't remember if it's hinted at or said explicitly, but that was. I think we're told that was provided by Hoyd. I am pretty sure we learned that as well.
Wow, that's cool. That's super cool.
So it's planting those seeds, yeah.
Yeah. Fabrials are made by enslaving Spren. I thought that was interesting.
If you found that interesting, that's a good sign for Rhythm of War.
Okay, cool.
Might be quite a bit of Fabrial science going on in the next book.
Okay.
Which actually, to be honest, I don't think you're really going to enjoy, but we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know where I'm gonna fall on Rhythm of War, because everybody told me I was gonna love this book, and I did not. Obviously, there's parts of this book I liked, which is the stuff we've been talking about, but overall, I really did not. I did not like this book. Ash finds Town. And he is overjoyed to see her and saying, she's like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, no, you gave the others a wonderful gift, a break from the torment.
Even you saying that gives me chills. It gives me chills every time.
Oh, man. I'm like, that's cool. And he was like, maybe they have a chance now. And so it's like, okay, I wonder, because we kind of find out in this book, I think we kind of assumed before this book, but in this book, it really shows that the heralds are around. They're not off somewhere crazy. It seems like they're around. like if they're the original Radiants and we have this new generation of Radiants with Kaladin, Shallan, Renarin, not Adolin, but like I guess Dalinar doesn't have a
Lift and
spren either.
Jasna. Dalinar
Lift.
counts. He's a bondsmith.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. And so yeah, it's like, okay, so are we gonna get the old Radiance with the new Radiance? And like, I don't know. That's super interesting to me. And then I know you guys can't talk about that much, I'm sure. And then
Jim can't talk about it. I will not talk about it.
and then Adolin's he has a spren, but the spren is like super dead. And so like when he gets into Shadesmar, there's like just like this horrifying spren. And he's like, "Ah, what's that?" And she's like, "That's your sword, dude." I thought that was, I don't know why I found that so funny.
Revelation. Come on.
It's like, oh yeah, that's your dead spren sword.
But did you notice at one point in the Battle of Thalen Fields, Adolin goes to summon his sword and it only takes him 7 heartbeats? Interesting little pickup.
No way. Is that after going to Shadesmar?
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Could
Okay.
be nothing. You never know.
I did not notice that, but I will
out.
definitely pay attention to that. That is super cool. That's super cool. Seth is following Dalinar now because he just decided to switch sides. So I was kind of like, okay.
We need the truth.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a head scratcher for me in the moment too. I remember going, WTF? Like that's it? Like that your decision's made? Like do you even know that dude really? Like I remember being a little baffled when he made that decision so abruptly in the moment.
Yeah, I was kind of
happy
like,
he did. Don't get me wrong, very happy
sure.
he did. But
Yeah. I was just kind of like, okay, we needed a way for Seth to join the good guys, and so we did, I guess. Oh, this was interesting. Okay, so Vale and Radiant take semi-physical form next to Shallan, and I think this is when is this when she's summoning like an army of illusory things? And then
very cool.
So Vale and Radiant come up, and then there's other hands that are like reaching up. And I'm like, wait, does she have like 20 other personalities that she's been like repressing that we don't know about? Because she specifically, it seemed pretty specific that it was like she was summoning her other personalities, and then there was these other hands that came up and she dismissed them. And so I'm like, okay, super interesting. I want to know more about this.
So I'll say 2 quick things on that scene. The things that struck me about that scene specifically is, of course, the end, Adolin being able to pierce through, see which one is the real Shallan, and that being so meaningful to her. That's nice. But the other thing, especially on a reread, is it's just kind of a little comment, but she seems like she's making all these like thousands of illusions.
Yeah.
But at one point, she's like, it seemed like the illusions had more substance that they had any right to.
Yeah. I wrote this down
kind of
somewhere.
Interesting.
Yeah. That was something. Shallan creates an illusory army that is able to resist the oncoming Voidbringers. She distracts the army with illusion, Parshman dying and screaming.
Which should not be possible. Illusions are just, there's no substance to them. So there's perhaps something interesting there.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I did pick up on that. I didn't know what it meant, but very cool. Venli starts speaking the oaths. And I was just kind of like, I was like, interesting, that's a Parshman, right? Venli?
A listener, technically.
Yeah,
yes.
Listener.
Okay. Well, the last listener.
Or a singer. Anyway.
Well, technically a listener. Okay. It's all very jumbled.
Okay.
Depending where her allegiances currently lie. But technically, she was a listener. She was, Eshonai's sister.
Okay.
We know that, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. She was one of the Parshendi out on the Shattered Plains fighting the Alethi.
Okay. So yeah, it's weird that she can speak the oaths. I guess I'm still so confused as to what allows somebody to speak an oath, or like how like I guess like all of the Radiants have a spren. So I don't know. I don't know how somebody really ends up with a spren. Like Kaladin just kind of got his, Shallan just kind of got hers.
Well, we saw Venli get hers, right? Do we see that in Rhythm of War? Do we see that in this one?
She
I think
had a
it's earlier.
spren. It was Timber, right?
Yeah, but do you see her get Timber the first time? I
Oh,
can't remember if we see that scene.
I think
I can't.
so.
I can't remember.
I think we do. Like,
In an earlier
there's a
book.
scene where Venli goes down in the chasms early on, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's this book, and she finds her dead sister and then she finds out that the only reason she was going was, Christ, I hope this isn't in the next book, but the only reason
You're
she was
okay.
going is because Ulam the Spren was telling her to get, because he just wanted to retrieve the shard blade, and they didn't give a shit about her sister.
Yeah.
And in that scene, you see this little Spren, which is presumably the Spren. I don't think this is spoilers. I sure hope not. But Eshonai
Okay.
was beginning to bond the Spren, and similar to how Hoyd picked up Elhokar's Spren, that it wasn't Venli who did it. That Spren who is in the early process of bonding Eshonai, then transferred over and started following Venli around in her gem heart shielding. Well, shit, I think
Okay.
that's all in this book. Fuck, I hope
Yeah,
so.
I think so.
It's okay. So it's so does the spren choose the Radiant, or is
Yep.
it like if you find one you have it?
It's
No.
the Sprens.
Spren
From what we
choose
know right now, the Spren have volition here.
Okay.
They have some level of autonomy. And
Okay.
you'll learn a lot more about that in the next book for sure. And,
Okay.
and a lot more in the one after.
Very cool.
Which I'm not to yet. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so kind of rushing towards the end here, or rushing, not Russian.
To our Russian listeners, not meaning you.
Hi, Russians. I have Dalinar wants to learn how to read here, and he does. He learns how to read and write, at least at like an elementary level. And well, I guess is there anything else we want to say about the final battle? Is there anything that I'm like missing before we talk about like the epilogue stuff?
A big thing I noticed that I found very weird, and I was surprised that it worked mechanically, and I have some more context as to why, or how, I guess. But Odium joining when Odium like took the field at Thalen City, in the Battle of Thalen City, or Battle of Thalen Field, and he's there in some sort of avatar form.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, like I didn't expect him. I expected him to like stay in the spiritual. I didn't expect like him to be there talking with people.
Real dog, he's there. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when Amaram's human army like gets the red eyes, I remember that being like, that can happen. Like they don't have
Right.
gem hearts. Like what is going on here? So I remember that being really confusing. But the big thing from that fight was just like Renarin being awesome after Jasna spared him, and like him being okay because he sees the future in some respects, in some ways, and like he knew it was going to happen, and he understood, and he nodded. Jasna didn't kill him, and then Renarin becomes kind of a hero, and Adolin going through the city, and then I love the Lift Zeth stuff. Zeth being so crazy and Lift being so kooky, and their funny buddy cop stuff.
Yeah.
And then just culminating with "You Cannot Have My Pain" is just an all-time fantasy moment for me. It's super powerful and it hits me hard.
Yeah, Odium trying to bring Dalinar over to his side to make him his champion. I think the book would have been a lot better if Dalinar had become Odium's champion, like if he was forced into being a champion for Odium's side, because I thought that's the way it was going. I'm like, oh, here we go. Finally, something like really risky and something really like, where Dalinar is going to be the bad guy now. Let's go. And I didn't get that, sadly.
I'm going to be careful on that one.
Okay. It's fair. I'm trying to look through some of my earlier notes just to see. There's a couple things with Hoyd that I want to touch on. He was talking about the moon switching places with the princess or whatever she was, and how the the human woman wanted to be in the celestial realm for a while to get pregnant. She comes back and she has a baby with blue skin, and that's the people of
Natan.
Natan,
Natan,
Natanatin.
yeah.
Hard to say some of these words.
Yeah. Another cool little tidbit is during the storms, Honor's power is in alignment, physical, cognitive, and spiritual, which is what charges the stones with Stormlight. But the Stormfather is unable to charge it himself. I thought that was just a cool little bit of information. And then
we know the
Hoyd's...
Stormfather can't charge gems when the gems aren't in a storm, but we see that Dalinar can.
Really?
When he smashed his hands together, he brought all three realms together. And I don't think it's a spoiler.
That's
I can't.
right,
I think they use
yeah.
the term. They call it a perpendicular.
Yeah,
and
Perpendicular.
it lit all the gemstones in the area up.
Ooh,
true.
I didn't catch that
And there
it
was
lit
no
up the
storm at the time.
gemstones, but that's cool. So yeah, what do I have enough information to know what he did there?
So not really. Like what we So what
As much as
pretty much
they knew.
he did a mega slap, but yeah, it's kind of hand wavy, but he brought all three realms together. So more so than the
together.
The high storm is mostly just the the physical essence of Honor in the high storm.
Right.
But really merging the three realms is more accurately what Dalinar does when he claps his three hands together and creates a perpendicularity.
Got
you
it.
just said when he clapped his three hands.
Yeah.
together.
Did I? Three realms, two hands. You get it.
Yeah.
I feel you, but I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
A couple quick Hoyd notes is Hoyd is more ancient than the heralds, and he made a promise to always be there when needed. And I love, dude, all of the Hoyd moments in this book are just 10 out of 10. I love Hoyd so much. And I love
As you should.
Yeah, I love his conversations with Shallan, and especially the one where I wish I had written down like a bigger quote of it like I have for the epilogue, but like I love his talk with Shallan where he finally gets through to her about like loving herself and like trusting herself at like her base level. I thought it was so great. Like I said, I wish I had a quote from it, but it was so good. Okay, so we get into the epilogue. Moash kills a herald, one of the best heralds, or the best herald, Yezrian, I think is how you say that, or how you spell that.
Dalinar's old drinking buddy. If you remember from the flashbacks, there'd be the crazy homeless man he could always rely on because he always had a bottle. That's that dude.
Okay.
And you see him in the prologue of Way of Kings. And Seth is walking into the palace to kill Elhokar, and there's a crazy old beggar man standing in front of a statue of Jezrien saying, "Have you seen me?" And you see that dude pop up a lot in Kholinar, but he's a crazy old beggar man. And yeah.
Wow.
Jezrien, king of kings, king of heralds.
Interesting. Okay, I wonder how he became a beggar. That's cool.
Well, we know the heralds are all messed up, right? Like Nail
Right.
Is all messed up. Who else do you know about? But yeah, suffice to say, the heralds are messed up, and perhaps no more so than Jezrien. I don't think that's a spoiler to say that, right? I knew about Jezrien back in like Words of Radiance, so I think that's fine.
So I wonder, Talon is so hopeful about like, oh, maybe they've had enough time to like reset and like become better, and it's kind of like maybe
you guys locked me away for 1,000 years. I hope you guys have been up to some great stuff in my absence.
Right?
Right?
Oh,
we may have dropped the ball.
Maybe not.
Shallan commits to Adolin. Kaladin is kind of bummed, I guess. He doesn't really seem too bummed. But he says that Shallan reminded him of someone, and right after he says that, Syl says, "Ooh, a pretty rock, look at this." And I'm like, dude, please tell me that Kaladin's love interest is not Syl. Please tell me.
Why? Why would that be a bad thing? Come on.
I don't know. I'm just like, it's just weird. Because he's like, I think she just reminded me of someone. Looks longingly over at Syl. I'm like, no, please
There's a part of
no.
me that goes, hey, Adolin? No, not Adolin. Kaladin? Syl? Yes. I mean, come on. Why not?
No, that's really interesting, Spencer. I didn't pick up on any of that. That's really interesting that you did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Yeah, because I always felt like there was some, like, I mean, there's camaraderie there. She even mentions earlier in the book, like I said, like, she's like, you've always needed, I don't know if codependent is the word, but she's like, you've always needed someone with you. You've always needed that cooperation with someone.
It's probably the word.
Yeah, and she's like, I came to you because you were lonely, and I saw that you needed that second person there. And so I've been picking up on a little bit of, like, not necessarily romance, but like a partnership. But then at the end,
sexual tension.
I don't know. It's not sexual tension with Syl. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm like, how would that work? I just it's icky in my brain a little bit. Yeah,
probably wouldn't work that much based on Sanderson's previous writings. No.
So
he doesn't go in that way. Just saying.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know what we're in for here. Hopefully, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. It would be like Peter Pan getting with Tinkerbell. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how,
that. Come on.
I don't know how I feel about that.
But what if Tinkerbell doesn't stay Tinkerbell and she grows?
Yeah,
because Peter will. Okay, this is going bad direction. Wow. Okay.
Damn, you walked into that one.
Oh my goodness. This is stuff I can do here because I can't do it on my own channel.
Right, yeah. So we talked about Moash killing a herald, and I don't know, like, what bigger implications that has. He also used a really specific dagger.
Yes, remember that.
Okay, because I don't know if I've seen that dagger before. I didn't recognize it.
First time we see it.
Okay.
But significant.
Okay. Taravangian is fully on Odium's side. It seems like he's now an Odium minion.
It seems like.
Okay. Yasna's the queen. Gross. Shalann's wedding.
Hey.
Her brothers are there, and Dalinar is now writing. And he wraps it up by saying, "Oathbringer, the title is Oathbringer, my glory and my shame," which I think is a good title.
It is.
But I loved Shallann reuniting with her brothers. I loved how she was like, I don't care if I mess up my makeup. Like, I'm saying hi to my brothers. Like, I loved the reuniting. I'm still really curious what role her brothers are going to play, because one of them is, like, evil. And so I'm like...
only in the, like, gently
sadist.
serial killer level evil.
Yeah.
Not like the whole in Dark Lord evil. I mean, there's levels.
Yeah, there's levels, but I'm just like, when are we gonna find out more about him? So
I laugh, but that's actually true what I just said. So
yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah. And the Ghostbloods tell her, like, here's a gift, but we need you to do what?
You are still on the hook.
No, they specifically tell her in this book. They're like, we need you to... I just didn't write it down. They're like, we need you to protect this person, or... I forget what it is.
That doesn't sound right. You need to do something.
But it involved a person. It involved an agent.
Oh, so they must have given her the quest. I couldn't remember if they did that at the end, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's tough for us, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be Kalik because that's what she does in
Yeah.
the next book. But
Yeah.
they want her to find Kalik, which is a herald.
It's a quest.
Yes. Okay.
Give her
Okay.
a quest.
Yeah. Okay. That's exactly it. So I guess there's not much to take away from that, really.
Not in this
Bravo.
book.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it.
You've gotten a lot of the crux of Oathbringer without
Okay.
appreciating what you've gotten.
Got it. Okay.
And then it's going to carry over into Rhythm of War beautifully, and then you'll look back at Oathbringer and go, "Oh crap, I get it now." That's you're going to have a lot of that.
Right.
No,
Gavin, am I wrong?
playing.
Am I
No,
wrong?
you're absolutely right. Brandon's playing the long game with this stuff, and sometimes you just gotta realize that and enjoy the stuff you can while you can, and remember what you can for the
Trust
future.
me.
But it's the journey before destination is the quote of this series for a reason, and and a character in a later book asks, "Why can't you just give me the answers?" And he's told why, and they're good. There's a reason you can't just be told.
You can't have my pain. No, wrong throat, but it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim would be right around that part, I think.
Right. Yeah, I did love the Dalinar, or I guess it's not necessarily it is a Dalinar line where he's like, the most important step a man can take is the next one. I'm like, that's a tattoo. That's a tattoo
real,
right there.
man.
Absolutely.
So
I love that.
there are so many people in life today that are overwhelmed by what's in front of them.
Yeah.
And just recognize, no, don't worry about all that. Just the next step.
Step.
I mean, that's deep.
That's
really
super deep.
stuff.
I love it.
And especially when you're seeing it for Dalinar, because for most people, you gotta overcome a lot. People have had terrible stuff in their past, but not a lot of people have burned their wife to death. Dalinar can do it.
Who
Any of us
steps off
can.
a cliff and it's all over.
Right.
And yet, no, he shows greater strength than that by saying, I'm going to own this. I'm going to find a way forward. Yeah. Love
and
it.
Just like, I'm not a huge cultivation stan by any means, but +1 for her. I just love the reveal of like the memories tying in with the memories coming back with terms of cultivation's whole thing with pruning him, getting him ready for that moment, that pivotal moment. I think that worked really well for me.
Massive props for recognizing it wasn't just he needed these removed. No, he needed these pulled back and slowly revealed as he had the capability to manage them, absorb them, own them. Wow. I mean, just wow. And Brandon Sanderson to think of this freaking stuff. That's why I enjoy him as an author.
Just the perfect interweaving of plot, character, and like theme in terms of a lot of the character work, and in terms of the oaths, in terms of characters' trauma. It's just so well done throughout the series.
There's a lot of great fantasy fiction out there, but Sanderson is doing something on a whole nother level with the Stormlight Archive.
I would agree.
Yeah. And is his writing, is his prose the best that's out there? It is not. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's not way up here. But just what he's bringing to this story, I don't care how he wrote it. It's so I can't voice it.
Yeah. It is as disappointed as I was with Oathbringer. I totally agree that that what he's doing as far as bringing all these things together is really good. I think my frustration comes from I'm going to have to read this 3 or 4 more times before I understand any of this.
Just twice.
Twice.
So, you'll be there with 2.
Yeah.
And Rhythm
it
of
won't
War
take
is
it
gonna
won't
convert
take
you
multiple
right away. Rhythm of War. That's all you need.
I'm excited. Well, that's a good place to wrap us up. I'm going to wrap us up with a quote from Wit, because I think, or from Hoyd, because I think that is always the best place to leave things, okay? All right. Wit poked the man in front of him in the shoulder. This makes sense if you think about it. Art is about emotion, examination, and going places people have never gone before to discover and investigate new things. The only way to create something that nobody hates is to ensure that it can't be loved either. Remove enough spice from soup and you'll just end up with water. The brutish man in front eyed him, then turned back to the line. Human taste is as varied, just continues. Human taste is as varied as human fingerprints, Wit said. Nobody will like everything. Everybody dislikes something. Someone loves that thing that you hate. But at least being hated is better than nothing. To risk metaphor, a grand painting is often about contrast. Brightest brights, darkest darks, not gray mush. That thing is hated, not proof that it's great art, but the lack of hatred is certainly proof that it is not, which is super wise. They shuffled forward another step. He poked the man in the shoulder again. And so, dear sir, when I say that you are the very embodiment of repulsiveness, I am merely looking to improve my art. You look so ugly it seems that someone tried and failed to get the warts off your face through aggressive application of sandpaper. You are less a human being and more a lump of dung with aspirations. If somebody took a stick and beat you repeatedly, it could only serve to improve your features.
So
you're what?
The ugly stick crosses cultures.
I'm just going to say, to improve your understanding of where this series goes, Wit's eloquence is amazing. And it gets better.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Oh, Jim, you have no idea.
Oh, God.
I love that. Oh, my goodness.
Well, yep. That's pretty much it.
Keep reading, Spencer.
Yes.
Keep reading. We want to share this joy with you. Or the suffering. Or both.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Like, despite how I feel about Oathbringer, I am super excited for the next book. I am super excited for Rhythm of War. I think I might be the opposite of what most people are. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'll hate Rhythm of War and love Winds of Truth.
No. No. Won't happen.
No?
No one hates with Rhythm of War who makes it that far.
Okay. I've heard a lot of people don't like it, but
Rhythm of War after reading it.
Okay.
Also, one thing to say, I've heard some people like consider Rhythm of War as like the first half of what, like, Wind and Truth and Rhythm of War are really one big book.
Wow. Okay.
Which is kind of an interesting, and I can understand why they think that. So it's I'm curious what you think, especially with one storyline in particular. I think it's very divisive in the fandom in general. Okay. And I have my theory of where you'll land, but I'm curious because it's up. You'll know which one I'm talking about when you're reading.
With one storyline, and I'm not far enough in to know which storyline you mean. Like what? Really? Okay. I'll trust you.
Interesting. I just hope Shallan comes back. I hope I like what's to come from Shallan because she is my favorite character.
Yes. I look forward to talking Rhythm of War with you because we'll be able to talk about so much more that we cannot.
No, screw that. I want to talk Wind and Truth with you.
Oh, yeah, we'll get there, but I don't know enough.
We'll get there.
I can just pine for Rhythm of War. That'll be next week, right, Spence?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that does kind of bring us to an interesting conversation because so as of the time of this recording, our next episode is going to be our end of the year live stream. That is next weekend, next Sunday. So we'll be doing that. In between now and Rhythm of War, we need to get out a Harry Potter episode and we need to get out a Dresden Files episode.
What are you up to in Dresden Files?
The next one is Briefcases.
Oh,
so it's
nice.
it's the second short story collection.
Oh yeah.
And then after that,
on that.
What's that?
I've never reread that. It's been a while for me.
Oh, yeah,
Is that the first one or the second one? I think
That's
that's
the
the
second
second
one.
one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the short stories. I'm not a
Good
short fiction guy,
stuff.
but I freaking
Yeah.
love Butcher.
Yeah,
Just,
you guys are both more than welcome to hop into that if you
just
want. It'll be in
bring
January.
me the heavy shoulder. No, that's not the right term. Shoulders, river.
River Shoulders.
Thank you. Is
Yeah.
that what it's really called? River Shoulders? Is
Yep.
that his name?
Well, that's the short form of his name. His
Yeah,
whole name
I
is
love
like
him in any of the
Yeah.
stories he shows up in.
no. The
He's
Bigfoot
Yeah.
ones are amongst my favorite too.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
So we have 2 big episodes to get through before we get to Rhythm of War. So it may be like early February that we're recording Rhythm of War.
That's a long time away. Wow.
So or maybe we'll forego one of those. You know, maybe we'll just do one big episode and start going on Rhythm of War. But I do feel like I need like a good like couple of weeks, if not 3 weeks, to read Rhythm of War. So we'll see. We'll see.
Spencer,
It'll be.
Are you sleeping these days? I mean, come on. The cool kids have quit sleeping. They just read. Gavin, you don't sleep anymore, do you?
I didn't for a while there. I'm back to sleeping.
Well, he finished Wind and Truth. That's
Exactly.
understandable now. I
There
get
was,
that. Okay.
yeah.
Sleep is like, I can do that when I'm dead.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, Rhythm of War will be interesting because I learned lessons from this book, and I learned that I need to like take it a little bit slower and like listen to it a little bit, like pay attention to it a little bit more.
0.75.
0.75.
That'll never
Oh
happen.
no.
Just 1.0. That'll be a new experience for you.
That'll be a completely new experience for me. But
my jam.
But yeah, so we'll see where it lands. We'll try to get our audience the Rhythm of War episode as soon as we can, because we do want to read these as close together as we possibly can, so that we're not forgetting too much and whatnot. So I will keep everyone updated and let you guys know where I'm at with reading it. Sam will be there again. I highly doubt that Gabe will be back for Rhythm of War.
He's done.
Yeah, he tapped out, which I understand. I get it. I get it.
He's not reading Romantasy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we've lost him.
I don't think he would have made it through Oathbringer. There's no way. If I had a hard time with it, there's no way that he would have made it through it. But with that, everyone, again, there's not too much to announce. If you're watching this, then our big end of the year thing is in the past, and you already know what we announced there, which I'm not going to announce here. So go watch that if you want the big announcements for 2025. But thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Gavin, Jim, thank you guys.
Come find our channel, just for the record.
Yes.
Pleasure to be back.
Definitely. Yeah. Jim's links will be in the description. You can go to Fantasy for the Ages. They talk about all this stuff and more. Wheel of Time, like we were talking about before the show, they do a lot.
Fantasy, sci-fi, horror, nerdy, whatever.
Yeah. So go check them out. Jim's around here a lot. Gavin's around here a lot. And I can't wait to have you guys on for whatever the next episode is that you guys jump on for, whether it's Dresden Files or when it's Rhythm of War or whatever. But with that, guys, we are going to wrap it up there for today. You can reach out to us on Twitter and Discord and Patreon, which are all linked down in the description. With the Patreon, you get to watch our episodes live as we record them. Sometimes people pop in here and they talk in the chat, and we can answer questions live as we do these things. We love chatting with you guys in that way, and it supports us to help us buy microphones. If you're watching this now, I guess I got Gabe a Christmas present, Christmas present with the Patreon money that is going to help him a lot with his side of the recordings and stuff. So thank you guys for that. You guys are, anyone who supports us on Patreon, you guys are amazing, and you make things like that happen. But leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think of Oathbringer. But just remember, please don't spoil any future Stormlight things. We can have discussions, we can have theories. Just don't spoil the next 2 books for me, because I do read the comments. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.